The war did not begin with a declaration. It began with silence. Across the edge of known space, entire star systems went dark without warning. No distress calls, no debris fields, just empty space where civilizations had existed the day before. The Galactic Coalition, an alliance of dozens of intelligent species, tried to respond with logic and planning, but logic failed when the enemy did not behave as expected. They called the enemy the Vierk Swarm. It was not a single species, but a coordinated force of living ships and machine minds. They learned fast. Every weapon used against them worked once and never again. That was why humanity was finally invited into the war, not as leaders, not as equals, as a gamble. Captain Elias Ward stood in the deployment bay of the Coalition carrier, staring at the stars through reinforced glass. He was human, born on Earth, trained on Mars, and now very far from anything that felt like home. His armor was scratched, patched, and clearly not made by the same species that built the ship around him. Human gear never matched alien design, but it worked anyway. It always did. Around him, alien soldiers moved with quiet discipline, tall ones, short ones. Creatures with too many eyes or not enough limbs. Most avoided looking at him for too long. Humans were still new here, still strange. Elias rolled his shoulders and checked the tools on his belt. He was not supposed to be in frontline combat. He was a combat engineer trained to fix broken machines and build solutions under fire. But the war had a way of ignoring job descriptions. A sharp tone echoed through the bay. "Captain Elias Ward," he turned. The speaker was tall and lean, her form covered in dark blue combat plating that fit her body perfectly. Her face was narrow, angular, with glowing silver eyes that did not blink. She belonged to the Keller Dominion, one of the oldest military cultures in the Coalition. Her name was Valeth. She looked at Elias like one might look at a weapon of unknown quality. "You have been assigned as my battle partner," she said. Her voice was calm, precise, and completely without emotion. "This assignment is temporary and based on Coalition necessity." Elias blinked. "Battle partner, that sounds serious." "It is a functional designation," Valeth replied. "You will operate alongside me during ground and boarding operations. Your survival rate will increase if you follow instructions." Elias smiled slightly. "I'll try my best not to slow you down." Valeth did not return the smile. "That would be optimal." The transport alarm sounded before more could be said. Orders scrolled across the bay displays in a dozen alien languages. The Vierk swarm had been detected near an industrial moon. Evacuation had failed. Coalition forces were moving in. Elias followed Valeth onto the dropship. The interior was tight, designed for Keller physiology. Elias had to duck slightly. He noticed Valeth watching him again, recording everything. "You don't trust humans," he said casually, strapping himself in. "Trust is irrelevant," she replied. "Humans have a projected casualty rate of 47% in the first 3 engagements." "Hey, that's better than 50. She tilted her head. "You interpret that as positive." "Gotta stay optimistic," Elias said. "Helps keep you alive." The dropship shook as it entered atmosphere. Outside, the moon burned. Fires spread across factory cities. Vierk's drones swarmed like insects, tearing through buildings and defensive lines. The ramp slammed down. Instant chaos. Energy fire lit the air. Explosions shook the ground. Alien units advanced in perfect formation, firing in controlled bursts. Elias ran beside Valeth, heart-pounding, mind already working. A Coalition walker went down ahead of them, its leg blown apart by adapting enemy weapons. The pilot screamed over the comms. "Engineer!" someone shouted. Elias did not wait for orders. "I'll get him," he yelled, already moving. Valeth grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Negative, that unit is lost. Mission priority is the command node." "He's still alive," Elias said. 2 minutes, max. "That is inefficient." Elias pulled free. "Yeah, well. Humans aren't." He ran through fire and falling debris, sliding into the shadow of the damaged walker. The Vierks were adjusting their fire pattern, already learning. Elias worked fast, hands moving from training and instinct. He rerouted power, cut a stuck harness, and dragged the injured pilot free just as the walker exploded behind them. They hit the ground hard. Elias covered the pilot with his body as shrapnel flew. Pain burned across his back, but he was alive. When he looked up, Valeth was there, weapon blazing, cutting down approaching drones with perfect precision. "You disobeyed a direct tactical assessment," she said as they moved back toward friendly lines. Pilot's alive, Elias replied. Worth it. She said nothing more, but her eyes stayed on him longer this time. The battle lasted hours. The Vierks adapted again and again, forcing coalition units to fall back. It was Elias who noticed the pattern, who realized the enemy ignored systems that looked damaged or inefficient. Make it look broken, he told Valeth over comms. They don't target what they think isn't a threat. That defies standard logic, she said. Trust me, she hesitated. Then she ordered her unit to overload shields just enough to appear unstable. The Vierks shifted focus. Coalition forces pushed forward. By the time the command node was destroyed, the moon was lost, but the enemy had been delayed. That was enough for the coalition. Back aboard the carrier, medics moved through the wounded. Elias sat on a crate, armor scorched, hands shaking now that the fight was over. Valeth approached him. Your actions increased mission success probability by 17%, she said. This is statistically significant. Elias looked up, tired but smiling. Does that mean I passed? She paused, then nodded once. You are acceptable as a battle partner, he laughed softly. High praise. Valeth turned away, already recording her report, but something had changed. For the first time, she marked a human not as expendable, but as a variable the enemy could not predict. And in this war, unpredictability was everything. The war did not slow down after the moon was lost. It only spread wider. More systems fell into danger, and the Vierk swarm kept learning. Coalition commanders changed plans again and again, but every time they believed they understood the enemy proved them wrong. Entire fleets were destroyed because the Vierks adjusted faster than expected. Human forces were sent where losses were expected to be high. Elias Ward knew this. Every human soldier knew it. Still, they went. Elias stood in the armory of another coalition carrier, tightening the strap on his armor. The damage from the last mission had barely been repaired. Human technicians worked fast, often with fewer tools than they needed. They learned to fix alien machines by feel, by sound, by instinct. If something worked, they used it. If it broke, they made it work again. Valeth entered the armory quietly. She moved with the same calm precision as always, but Elias noticed something new. Her gaze did not immediately scan the room for threats. It went to him first. You are cleared for deployment, she said. Medical assessment lists you as functional. Elias raised an eyebrow. That's the nicest thing a doctor said to me all week. She did not smile, but she did not look away either. Your injury risk remains above acceptable limits. Yeah, he said, that happens when you run toward explosions. That behavior remains illogical. Maybe, Elias replied, checking his tools, but it keeps people alive. Valeth considered that. Your species continues to prioritize individuals over strategic efficiency. Funny thing, Elias said. Those individuals tend to remember who had their back. The next mission was worse. The Vierks had attacked a coalition outpost built inside an asteroid cluster. The location made large fleet actions impossible. It would be close combat, tight spaces, limited support. Exactly the kind of fight humans were good at. And exactly the kind of fight most other species avoided. Elias and Valeth were assigned to lead a mixed unit through the inner tunnels. As soon as they entered, alarms echoed through the stone corridors. The Vierks came fast, crawling across walls and ceilings, their weapons shifting shape mid-fire. Coalition troops fell back when formations broke. Humans moved forward. Elias slammed a charge onto a tunnel wall and blew a new path when the main route collapsed. He yelled directions, voice calm even as debris rained down. Valeth watched him closely as she fought. He did not hesitate. He did not freeze. He adapted faster than the enemy expected. At one point, a Keller soldier went down, pinned by collapsing stone. The correct tactical response was to leave him. Valeth knew this. The data was clear. Elias ignored the data. He ran forward under fire, lifting debris that should have been too heavy. His armor servos screamed. His muscles burned. He dragged the wounded soldier free while Valeth covered him, her shots precise, her movements sharp. When they reached cover, the soldier lived. Valeth's internal records flagged the moment. Human behavior, repeated self-risk for non-essential unit survival. She did not understand it. The mission dragged on for hours. Oxygen ran low. Ammo dropped. The Vierks adjusted again, learning human patterns this time. Elias noticed before anyone else. They're predicting us now, he said over comms. They think they get how we move. That is expected, Valeth replied. Good, Elias said. Then let's stop moving like humans. He did something no simulation would have suggested. He ordered the unit to break apart, to act independently, to trust instinct instead of command structure. Chaos followed. And then success. The Vierks faltered, unable to track so many unpredictable targets. The outpost survived. The coalition called it a miracle. Elias called it teamwork. After the mission, Valeth requested a private debrief with Elias. This was unusual. Keller debriefs were typically silent, data-focused affairs. You deliberately rejected standard doctrine, she said. Yeah, Elias replied, because it was going to get us killed. And yet your method succeeded. Humans are good at messing things up, he said lightly. Turns out that's useful. Valeth studied him. Your species does not fight to win alone. No, Elias said. We fight so the people next to us make it home. That answer stayed with her. Weeks passed. Battles blurred together. Losses mounted. Humans continued to volunteer for missions with the lowest survival odds. They joked before combat. They mourned after. They remembered names. Valeth noticed that humans spoke of fallen soldiers often, not as statistics but as people. They told stories. They laughed and grieved at the same time. In Keller culture, fallen warriors were honored in silence. One mission changed everything. The coalition launched an evacuation under heavy Vierks assault. Valeth's unit was assigned rear guard. The order was clear: delay the enemy, then retreat, but retreat failed. The exit route collapsed. Communications died. Enemy numbers grew. Valeth was struck by an energy blast while holding a defensive line. Her armor absorbed most of it, but not enough. She fell, systems failing, vision dimming. Pain flooded her senses. She calculated survival odds. Lo, Elias saw her fall. He did not think. He moved. He dragged her behind cover, firing with one hand, pulling her weight with the other. His breath came in sharp gasps. Enemy fire tore through the air around them. Leave me, Valeth said, voice strained. Your survival probability increases without me. Not happening, Elias said. You're my partner. That designation does not require mutual sacrifice. Maybe not for you, he said. But it does for me. He set her against the wall and took position in front of her as the Vierks closed in. His weapon overheated. He switched to another, then another. Minutes passed, then more. Reinforcements arrived just as Elias' last weapon failed. When the fighting ended, Elias collapsed beside Valeth, blood on his armor, hands shaking. She survived. In the medical bay, Valeth remained conscious longer than expected. She watched Elias argue with medics, refusing treatment until she was stabilized. This behavior made no sense, and yet something inside her shifted. Later, when she was fully recovered, she performed a rare act. She formally named Elias her battle partner under Keller law. The designation was not given lightly. It meant trust without reservation. Elias accepted without understanding the full meaning. Guess we're official now, he joked. Valeth said nothing, but her gaze softened just slightly. The war continued. But from that moment on, Valeth no longer fought beside a human out of necessity. She fought beside Elias' ward because she chose to. And for the first time, she began to fear not what humans might lose in this war, but what the galaxy might become if it ever stood against them alone. The war reached a breaking point long before anyone was ready to admit it. Star maps filled with red markers. Supply lines failed. Coalition fleets retreated again and again, not because they lacked courage, but because the Vierks swarm learned too quickly. Every victory came with a cost that could not be replaced. Human losses were the highest. Still more humans arrived. Elias' ward stood on the bridge of a battered coalition cruiser, staring at a tactical display that showed too many enemy signals and not enough friendly ones. The ship vibrated under constant strain. Repairs were temporary. Everything was temporary now. Valeth stood beside him, armor repaired but scarred. Her movements were the same as always, controlled, precise, but her presence near Elias had become constant. Where he went, she followed, not by order, by choice. Coalition Command transmitted new orders. A strategic withdrawal. Multiple systems would be abandoned to create a defensive line closer to the core worlds. Billions would be displaced. Entire species would lose their homes. The room fell silent. Elias clenched his jaw. That's not a defense, he said quietly. That's giving up. It is a calculated necessity, a coalition commander replied through the display. We cannot stop the Vierks at our current strength. Elias looked at Valeth. What do you think? This question would have been unthinkable months ago. Keller warriors did not ask humans for opinions in strategic matters. Valith studied the data, then she did something unexpected. "I believe the calculation is incomplete," she said. The commander paused. "Explain." "The Vierks predict based on observed behavior," Valith continued. "Coalition forces are predictable, humans are not." Several alien officers reacted with confusion, some with discomfort. Elias leaned forward. "We've been reacting to them the whole war." "What if we make them react to us?" "What are you suggesting?" the commander asked. Elias took a breath. "A counteroffensive, not clean, not safe, something they can't learn fast enough to stop." Silence followed, then rejection. "That would result in unacceptable casualties," the commander said. Elias nodded. "Yeah, probably." The transmission ended. Orders stood. "Withdrawal in 20 hours." Elias turned away from the display, fists clenched. "We're leaving them," he said. "All those people." Valith watched him carefully. "You are emotionally compromised." "Of course I am," he said. "Aren't you?" She hesitated. "I am conflicted." That admission was rare. Keller warriors were not raised to speak that way. Later that cycle, Elias met with human unit leaders in a maintenance bay far from command sensors. The space was filled with patched armor, tired faces, and quiet determination. "They're pulling back," Elias said, "and if they do, the Vierks will roll straight through." One of the soldiers crossed her arms. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Elias replied, "that humans don't have to follow that order." No one laughed. They all understood. Plans formed quickly, not perfect plans, human plans. Risky, improvised, and based on trust more than numbers. They would strike at the Vierk's core command structure. Not to destroy it completely, but to disrupt it long enough for coalition forces to regroup. A mission no simulation approved. Valith learned of the plan before it launched. She confronted Elias in a quiet corridor. "This operation is unauthorized," she said. "Your probability of survival is extremely low." "Yeah," he replied. "I figured." "You did not include Keller forces." "I didn't want to drag anyone else into this." She stepped closer. "You did not drag me into anything. You chose for me." He met her gaze. "I didn't want you to feel obligated." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You misunderstand the nature of our bond." Before he could respond, she activated her comm and issued orders to her unit. "Keller strike teams will support the human assault." Elias stared at her. "You don't have to." "I choose to," she said. The attack began without warning. Human ships pushed beyond safe limits, engines screaming as they burned faster than designed. Pilots flew manually, cutting systems that would normally protect them, trading safety for speed. The Vierks noticed too late. Boarding teams launched into the heart of enemy formations. Combat was close, brutal, constant. Elias and Valith fought side by side through a Vierk's command vessel, corridors alive with shifting metal and hostile intelligence. The enemy adapted, but not fast enough. Humans changed tactics mid-fight. Keller units followed, guided by Valith's evolving commands. For the first time, alien forces fought like humans. Improvising, trusting instinct, breaking patterns, the Vierks began to falter, but the cost was heavy. Human ships fell one by one, communications flickered. Elias took a hit to the shoulder but kept moving. Valith's armor cracked under sustained fire. They reached the command core together. Elias set the charges, hands steady despite the chaos around them. "Once this goes," he said, "we've got about 30 seconds to get out." Valith checked her weapon. "That will not be sufficient," he smiled. "It never is." Enemy forces surged. The exit route collapsed. Fire cut them off. Elias looked at Valith. "I can manually trigger the overload from here." "That will trap you," she said. "Yeah." She grabbed his arm. "No, someone has to stay." "I am the logical choice," she replied. "My survival probability is lower." Elias shook his head. "I'm not losing you. That is not your decision." "It is," he said firmly. "I won't make it yours." They stood there, surrounded, alarms screaming. Then Valith did something completely against her training. She pulled him close and activated her armor's emergency shield, throwing him backward through a breach she created with a single overcharged shot. The blast separated them. "Valith," Elias shouted. Her voice came through the calm despite everything. "You taught me that bonds are chosen," she said. "This is my choice." The signal cut. The explosion tore through the command vessel moments later. The Vierk's coordination collapsed. Across the sector, enemy forces faltered, unable to adapt without their central intelligence. Coalition fleets, shocked by the sudden shift, pushed forward. The impossible counteroffensive worked, but Elias never saw Valith again. His ship barely escaped the blast zone. He spent days in medical stasis, drifting between consciousness and darkness. When he woke, the war was over. The Coalition declared victory, crediting human unpredictability as the turning point. Humanity was no longer seen as expendable. They were seen as dangerous. Elias did not celebrate. He stood alone in a quiet observation chamber, staring at the stars where the battle had ended. Valith was listed as lost in action. Battle partner, status unknown. Elias closed his eyes. Humanity had saved the galaxy. But it had cost him everything he never knew he was afraid to lose. And somewhere in the vast silence of space, the echo of one final choice still lingered, waiting to be answered. The war did not end with celebration. It ended with silence. Across Coalition space, weapons powered down. Fleets returned to damaged ports. Soldiers disembarked slowly, many of them unsure how to stop moving like the next alarm might sound at any moment. Systems that had burned for years finally went quiet, and the galaxy tried to remember what peace felt like. Elias Ward stood on a balcony overlooking a medical station orbiting a blue-white star. His arm had healed, though the scar remained. Many scars did. Doctors said he was lucky. He did not feel lucky. Valith's name was still listed as missing, not dead, not alive, just missing. That single word followed him everywhere. Human Command offered him medals. The Coalition offered formal thanks. Alien leaders spoke of humanity with a new tone, one mixed with respect and careful fear. Humans were no longer seen as weak or reckless. They were seen as the species that broke the Vierks by refusing to behave as expected. Elias attended the ceremonies because he was required to. He stood straight, accepted honors, and said the correct words. Inside, he felt hollow. At night, he dreamed of burning corridors and silver eyes. Weeks passed, then months. The galaxy began rebuilding. Borders were redrawn, new treaties were signed. Humanity was offered a permanent seat on the Coalition Council. Some humans celebrated, others questioned what that kind of power would cost. Elias requested reassignment away from frontline command. He was given a temporary role as a technical advisor, helping Coalition forces learn how humans planned, repaired, and adapted under pressure. He did the work well. He did not smile much. One day, while reviewing repair schematics in a quiet operations room, a Keller officer approached him. The officer stood rigid, eyes forward, posture formal. "Captain Elias Ward," the officer said, "you are requested at a Coalition assembly." Elias sighed softly. "Another ceremony?" "This assembly is unusual," the officer replied. Elias followed anyway. The assembly hall was large, designed to accommodate dozens of species. Light filtered in from above, reflecting off polished stone and metal. Delegates filled the room, their voices low and curious. Elias took his assigned place near the human delegation. The session began with routine matters, reconstruction efforts, resource sharing, defense planning. Elias listened without much focus. Then the presiding council speaker paused. "There is an item of cultural significance to be addressed," the speaker said, "one involving interspecies conduct during wartime." A quiet ripple moved through the room. The speaker continued. During the conflict, several coalition members formed long-term battlefield partnerships with human soldiers. Subsequent cultural review has revealed misunderstandings. Elias felt a faint tightening in his chest. Representative Valith of the Keller Dominion has formally requested the right to address the council. Elias froze. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. Valith walked in. She was alive. Her armor was different now, repaired and reforged, marked with symbols Elias did not recognize. A thin scar ran along her jaw. She walked with the same calm precision as always, but her presence filled the room. Elias stood without realizing he had moved. For a moment the world narrowed to the sound of his own heartbeat. Valith approached the center of the hall and stopped. She did not look at Elias at first. She faced the council, posture formal. "I survived the destruction of the Vierks command vessel," she said. "I was recovered by a human rescue team operating beyond assigned parameters." Murmurs spread. "Their actions violated Coalition retreat protocols," she continued. "They returned for me without orders. I am alive because they chose to disobey." Elias swallowed. Valith turned then, her silver eyes finding him across the hall. "In Keller culture," she said, "a battle partnership formed under repeated life-risk conditions is not temporary. It is a lifelong bond. It signifies absolute trust, shared purpose, and chosen unity." The council listened closely. When I named Elia's ward my battle partner, she continued, I acted within my cultural law. However, I failed to understand that humans do not assign the same meaning to this bond. She paused. That failure is mine. Elias felt the weight of every eye in the room, but he could not look away from her. I have studied human customs since the war's end, Valeth said. I have learned that humans separate duty from personal choice, that they believe bonds must be freely accepted, not assumed. She took a slow breath. Therefore, I stand before the council not to claim what was never agreed to, but to ask. The hall was completely silent. Valeth stepped away from the center and walked toward Elias. Each step felt unreal to him, like the world might break if he moved too suddenly. She stopped in front of him. In my culture, she said, her voice softer now, to survive war together, to choose each other under fire, and to protect one another above mission success. That is the foundation of a life bond. She lowered herself slightly, not kneeling, but bowing in a way that carried deep meaning among her people. Elia's ward, she said, will you choose to form that bond with me? Gasps echoed through the hall. Elias could not speak at first. He remembered the first mission. The arguments, the trust built in fire, the moment she pushed him to safety, the empty weeks after, he looked at her and saw not a symbol, not a warrior, not an alien representative. He saw his partner. You know, he said finally, voice unsteady but honest, humans usually do this a little differently. A few nervous sounds moved through the room. Valeth tilted her head. I am aware. Elias took a step closer. We don't bond because rules say we should. We bond because we want to, because we choose each other even when it's hard. I understand, she said. He smiled, small but real. Good, because I choose you. The hall erupted, not in chaos, but in something like wonder. Species that had fought beside humans now watched them with new eyes. This was not conquest, not dominance. This was connection. The council speaker cleared their throat. Let the record show that this bond is entered by mutual consent. Elias extended his hand, human custom simple and open. Valeth placed her hand in his, her grip steady and warm. Later, away from the crowd, they stood together on a quiet observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before them. I believed you were gone, Elias said. I believed the same of you, Valeth replied. The possibility of loss was unacceptable, he nodded. Yeah, turns out humans don't handle that very well. She studied him. Humans endure much, but they grieve deeply. We care deeply, he corrected gently. She considered that. Then I will continue to learn. They stood in silence for a while. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had changed it, not just through war, but through refusal to fight alone. And for the first time since the war began, Elias felt something settle inside him, not victory. Not relief, but peace. Because in a universe that had once seen humanity as expendable, one alien warrior had learned the most human lesson of all, that some bonds are worth choosing, again and again.